Okay, girls, good to have a Shabbos to you. A big subject in the news nowadays is hand washing. So it happens to be that the Izhbitzer speaks about, who was one of the great Hasidic rebbes of the the mid 1800s, speaks about hand washing. This week's parsha and its significance, and it's because at the beginning of the parsha talks about the Kohanim, and the Kohanim, when they're in the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, they had to wash their hands from the kior, one hands and feet, before they went to do the avoda. I'm sure you're familiar with this. And he says a fascinating thing about this. He says, I'm going to read it and translate. Why do the Kohanim have to wash their hands from the kior before they went to do the avoda? The purpose is to remove and take away any vested interest which a person has. Now, I'm sure since you're all tremendous balos musar, you all know what the concept of negia is, right? Anybody know what it means? Yes? No? Raise your hands if you know what it means. No. Yeah? Yes? What does it mean? Now tell me what it means.
Clean.
What?
Clean.
Negia?
No, oh. Negia or Nikia?
Negia in Musar. What is a negia?
You all know what Nikia means. Touch.
Somebody say? If you don't know.
Touch.
What?
Touch.
What does it mean in Musar? In Musar, it means if you have that, you can't. Sometimes a person can't think straight objectively because they have a personal vested interest. That's what the Baalei Musar call a negia. In other words, I am nogea badavar. I have a personal interest in it, and therefore I'm literally touching. I have a touch on it, and since I have a touch on it, I can't think straight. A person has to try and rid themselves of all their negios before they're able to think straight and think something through. Somebody who's nogea badavar is not allowed to sit as a judge because their personal negia is like shochad. It's like a bribe, which will incline them to judge one way or the other, right? So therefore, a person has negios, whether it's because he's a relative or because he is a friend or because he has some sort of connection, can't sit in judgment on somebody with whom they're nogea badavar. So too, if you're trying to make a cheshbon hanefesh, you're trying to figure out what you should be doing in this world, you can't make a cheshbon hanefesh properly if you have negios. If you're not going to let your personal vested interests and your own agenda interfere with your thinking about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from you. So far, so good? Got it? Okay? So he says, Rechitza moirauze. Washing one's hands denotes removing one's touch, one's vested interest, one's connection to one's personal agenda. Kamosha Kosov Eitzel Egla Rufa, like it says by the Egla Rufa, which is the calf which we kill when we don't know who murdered a person whose corpse we found in an empty field or an empty area. Rachzu Ziknei Ro, the people, the elders of the city nearest the casualty, have to wash their hands. And they say, our hands have not spilled his blood. In other words, they're saying, they weren't involved in this at all. It's not their responsibility. They didn't do something wrong, which would have led to this person being murdered. So what does it mean to remove a negia? It means to remove any vested interest, which is very hard. It's not easy. And to negate your own opinions and your own will relative to Ratzon Hashem Yisbarach. In other words, I'm not looking at myself, I'm looking at what Hashem wants from me. And that's a very difficult thing to do. But he says, that which we are commanded by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to wash our hands, it's actually by the Rabbanon, perhaps, but the same idea. Shachris, in the morning and before we eat, Hugam came. It's the same idea. Before you start to eat something, which is part of your bodily needs, you have to daven the Kodesh Baruch Hu, Be'im sheyavo yado davar miyani olam hazeh. If something in this world comes to him, shu chas v'sholem neged rotzon Hashem Yisrael, which is against the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, oz mevakish Hashem Yisrael, you asking Hashem sheyitov yasir is going to remove, to take away from you as tavasot mizeh, in that thing which you desire to do, which is inappropriate. Vav kam b'davar heter nimtza ganke davar tovi bucho, and even in something which is permitted, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. It depends. Now he gives an interesting example. His example is a person goes and eats something which is permissible, and then afterwards he uses the power, the energy he got from eating that thing which is technically permitted to go do an avera, then then retroactively comes out he never received the power of good, so he can use the power of good which wasn't that thing. Now, there's the example I would give is that I don't know if we ever spoke. Do we ever speak about eating steak? No. Is there any heter to have a steak? Is it mutter to eat steak?
Yeah.
But why is it mutter to eat steak? Because it's kosher, right? But that's not necessarily true. Maybe a steak is too much indulgence in this world, and it's not done with Shem Shamayim. Reb Tzadok HaKohen Lublin says the reason why Chazal were mesaken the idea of brachos before we eat is because they realize that really we're not necessarily going to eat l'shem Shamayim. What Hashem expected of us, the reason why it's brachos only the Rabbanon, is that Hashem expected us to eat l'shem Shamayim. But as Rabbanon said, let's get real. Not all of us are going to eat l'shem Shamayim. So therefore, at least you should make a bracha beforehand in order to attach the eating to some form of a mitzvah. But a person goes and has something which is a luxury and indulgence for the sake of indulging themselves and without any l'shem Shamayim, without any purpose for the sake of heaven. It's not so simple that that's a permitted thing to do. It's not. Certainly, it's engaging in taiva l'shem taiva, which is not a good thing. Now, there are many ways in which a steak can be eaten l'shem Shamayim. If a person is going to eat a steak and then be able to go and do a tremendous mitzvah, or go and daven with greater kavanah, then eating the steak is a good thing. But, like he says, if you're eating the steak and then you go do something bad, or you don't do something good, or you're just eating for the purpose of your own pleasure, that's a problem. By the way, it's better to eat a steak together with somebody else, because if you Chazal tell us in Maseches Sanhedrin, Gedola legima shemakareves es halavavos. If two people eat together, it makes them closer, makes them gives them a better connection, a more close and deep connection. So if I eat you rarely see, sometimes you see it, but you rarely see in a nice restaurant, a fancy one, people eating by themselves. People don't go to restaurants by themselves. The experience, there's an intuition within human beings, which is that good food is meant to create good fellowship. It's meant to be a shared experience, so it deepens the bonds between myself and somebody else. So even a very simple person who's not Jewish, not Talmid Chacham certainly, can understand that eating by oneself, an indulgence, a luxury, is very difficult to do for reasons other than sheer gluttony, which is a problem. Like Ramban tells us in Parshas Kedoshim, the mitzvah Kedoshim too is that you should not be a novo b'shus Torah. You shouldn't be a glutton and say, well, the Torah said it's okay because it's la kosher. It's not good enough. It has to be that you're doing things l'shem shamayim, not for your own negios, but for reasons for the sake of heaven. So again, to function better as later on is a great reason to do it. In order to deepen bonds of friendship is a great reason to do it. Oneg Shabbos is a great reason to do it. But without mitzvos, you have to think twice. Am I doing this because of my own negia, because of my own intention to derive pleasure? Or am I doing it really because it's the right thing to do at the moment? And that's true, of course, about everything, but the thing to which we have the most attachment physically is eating. So Ever Chazal said, according to the Izhbitzer's understanding, every time you go to eat, you go to a meal, you should wash to know, am I going to use the meal the right way? Let me wash myself away of all the negios and see if what I'm about to do is the right thing or not. So A similar thing he says about when you get up in the morning. When you get up in the morning, obviously you're coming to do the approach the day, and you're supposed to say to yourself, I want to take away all of my negios, all of my personal agenda, and I want to do what I'm supposed to do the rest of the day because it's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do, not what I want to do myself. And continues. So he says, Valzel rechitza. Sorry. And this comes to rechitza, the washing. Shu tefillah l'Hashem yisbarach. Washing is a tefillah. Is that an amazing thing? Most of the time we think about tefillah as being what we say. That's not true. Tefillah is what we do as well. And I'm sure many of you on the night of Rosh Hashanah have various different simonim, which you eat at home. There are various different minhagim, what you're supposed to eat, black-eyed peas, fish heads, a whole bunch of different things. And the simonim are tefillos. There's no such thing as a ceremony in Judaism. Everything is a way of davening, or of course of doing chesed to another person, but everything there is a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in some way, shape, or form. And this is true about a simanim on Rosh Hashanah, and this is true about washing before a person eats or when he gets up in the morning. It's a tefillah that I should only get what's good in Hashem's eyes from what I'm going to do during the course of the day or for what I'm going to eat in the next few moments. And he says an interesting thing. It's halacha. In Hilchos Yerusha, when you inherit something, let's say you have a long lost uncle who was wealthy, and he died, and he left you. Well, I'm sorry. Before he died, he told you he was going to leave you a lot of money, but you don't want this money for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's an ugly piece of furniture that you don't want. So a person says, a person is allowed to say that. You can say, I do not want to inherit that bureau, that ugly chest. And it works halachically. Even if you inherit everything else from that person because you're the closest relative, nevertheless, you can refuse to inherit things which you don't want to inherit. After the person dies, it's too late because you already inherited it at the moment he died. But if before a person dies, if you say, you know what, Uncle, what's his name? You're very precious to me, but I don't want that ugly furniture. You can reject it and say, I don't intend to inherit it. So he says also here, a person when they wash is saying, I don't want to do things which are not Ratzon Hashem. There are many things they're going to do in the course of the day. And the truth is, most of us fail at least a few times a day. But the washing, again, before a meal and at the beginning of the day is a tefillah. Hashem, help me out that I don't inherit, that I don't take things which are not good for me. And he says that's why, very interesting thing, I assume most girls don't say karbanos in the morning, right? Do girls say karbanos ever? No. But there is in karban, almost no yeshiva guys do either, so I wouldn't expect it of you. But it says, during in karbanos, it says, before Psukim Zimra, they put in Parshas HaKior, with a discussion of the Kior, which we have in the Mishnah, the Beis Hamikdash. And why is it there? Kodem Atfila, Kodem Parshas HaKarbanos. It means that we should not daven for anything except that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. In other words, we're washing our hands figuratively in the Parshas HaKior, which we say before davening, in order to show that we want to make sure our davening is also the right davening for the right things. Now, there's a big problem, which comes out later in our parsha, because when Moshe Rabbeinu comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, Hareini nas kvodecha, show me your honor, so Hashem says, Farisa sacharai panai lo yeru. You can only see behind, you can't see in front. And we understand that Farisa sacharai is kind of like hindsight, and we have the statement which, we have a statement which we know, hindsight is 20/20. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, the way Izhbitzer explains it, Moshe Rabbeinu has shown all of history until that point, and how it all worked out according to Ratzon Hashem. But he wasn't shown the future or the present. As Panai, we don't see. We only see Acharai. And therefore, to know what's Ratzon Hashem, sometimes it's very, very difficult. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, it's not part of the master plan that you should know. If you knew that, your bechira would be diminished. You'd have less free will, and you have less free choice. So So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I don't show you the future. I don't even show you the present. I'm only showing you Acharai. And Chazal say that Acharai is symbolized by the Kesher Shel Tefillin. The Kesher Shel Tefillin is where the tefillin comes by the back of the neck, and the straps start coming down. But that means that you see how things come up to a certain level. You don't see the front of the tefillin, where all the parshas are, where the psukim are written inside. That's beyond you. You can't see that. All you can see is how it comes down from on high and then spreads out into this world, but not the master plan, not the purpose, and not necessarily where you're going. And that's why negios are so dangerous, because a person has negios, so then what happens is that they can't even think straight about what they're supposed to do, and Hashem doesn't ever tell us precisely what we're supposed to do. We have to figure it out on our own. Of course, many people you can get advice from a Rav, or from a Mora, or from parents, but ultimately nobody knows for sure. You have to try, and nobody knows what's deep in your hearts. Nobody knows what's precisely what you should be doing. They can give you guidance, but in the end, even if they tell you to do X, Y, Z, you still have to do l'shem shamayim and without any negias. So therefore, you always have to work on getting rid of whatever ulterior motives you have in your heart. And it's a hard thing to do because we don't always know, but Hashem says we have to approximate. We have to try it out. It's very much similar to what's going on in the world now with coronavirus. Because coronavirus, really, nobody knows anything. The reality is that you hear from many people. I want to tell you, my daughter can tell you, I'm kind of a self-confident and a little bit arrogant kind of guy. And I'm able to come and tell Chas v'shalom, my daughter didn't take any of those meals. But I sometimes come and used to come make pronouncements with certainty, if I know Ratzon Hashem. And obviously that's never a good thing to do, but here we see that's clearly, nobody knows exactly what Ratzon Hashem is. Obviously the world is turning upside down. Obviously things are happening. Obviously there are important things to do and not to do. Obviously planning is turned on its head. But nobody knows what exactly we're supposed to do. Nobody can know. So what can a person do? Like Chazal say, whatever you do, whether it's a lot of precautions or little precautions, think what I'm doing is because I'm trying to figure out what Ratzon Hashem is. And obviously there's contradictory advice about everything. But you have to try and think, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me? And obviously we know that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants for us is told for us at the end of the Gemara in Sota, the last Mishnah in Masechet Sota. Last Mishnah in Masechet Sota says what's going to happen at the end of time, just before Mashiach comes. And it's a pretty famous Mishnah. The Mishnah says that Bikvasan Mashiach, at the time, just the time before Mashiach comes, it's going to be chutzpah yaska. There's going to be a lot of chutzpah in the world. Things are going to get very expensive in the world. Yoker Yamir. People are going to not know how they're going to make a living. It says here, Hagefen titem pira v'yayin b'yoker. Even though there's going to be a lot of grapes, wine is going to be very expensive. V'amalchus tiapei chlaminus. The government will all become people who don't believe in God. Nobody can give anybody else musar. Beis Avad Liznus, the place where people normally gather in Torah will be full of licentious, inappropriate behavior. And about Galil Yecharev, the Galil will be desolate. V'agavlan, nobody knows exactly what it means. Yishom will be desolate as well. And every people go from city to city, and they won't receive any mercy. And it goes on to say more and more about this, and then it finishes up. Everybody knows because it's a famous song. We have to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's where the Mishnah is. But in the Mishnayos, where it's printed, there's a brisa printed immediately afterwards. Mishnah is obviously part of what we read on not to print the Mishnayos. The brisa is added is from Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yosher, who is Talmidim, and that's also a famous brisa. This is a brisa which the basis of Mesilas Yesharim. It says, Rabbi Pinchas Yomer Rizus Mivili de Nikius, Nikius Mivili de Tara, Tara Mivili de Precious, etc., etc. And there brings a whole level of levels which we are supposed to grow and accomplish in this world. And those levels we're supposed to go and accomplish in this world are levels of higher and higher refinement. And what's the Mishnah telling us? After this tells us, we can have nobody to rely upon except the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Immediately afterwards it tells us, yeah, but that doesn't mean you're not active. You still have to do what's right in being growthful and in terms of trying to refine yourself and make yourself a better person until the point here where you can even get to Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, but at least we should start working. We should work on ourselves. So anytime there's a sakana in the world, anytime there's a danger in the world, we don't know what to do. We have to try and figure out the Ratzon Hashem. Even that's very difficult. We have to try and fulfill directives of our leaders and of the health authorities. But we have to never stop working on ridding ourselves of our negias, of our distortions, our vested interests, and working on getting to higher and higher levels of avodas Hashem, just like the Messiah Hashem describes. But the base of that is, anyway, you're going to be washing your hands a lot during the next few days. Hopefully with soap and water, and sometimes until it's your dime. But Kavanah works for both. Have in mind when you're doing both, I want to get rid of my personal interests and any inappropriate agendas I have, and devote myself to try and do things l'shem shamayim in line with Ratzon Hashem. Have a good Shabbos and stay healthy.